Are you the kind of player that really loves to play spellcasters in all shapes and sizes? And do you find yourself sometimes flipping through the official Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition books and just not finding that one particular spell you are really interested in or just really floats your boat? Well, I got news for you, because Kobold Press fixed that, because they now have 700 new spells for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. Hi there, fellow Dungeons & Dragons players and Dungeon Masters alike. Welcome to my new studio. I needed to get myself some storage because I was getting a ridiculous amount of books. These are not all my books. I'm still putting some books in this thing anyway, because I'm getting a ridiculous amount of books sent to me by creators, third-party 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons creators, and they send books like these, Deep Magic. And I know I've done a video a while back ago where I told you guys I was going to review certain books and certain things, and I'm still planning on that because I have a lot of time, more time to create videos now. But I got this to my doorstep, flipped through it, and to be perfectly honest, I have to turn my light a little bit, and my girlfriend also flipped through it, and we were completely amazed by it. And that is why I just want to share this with you. Deep Magic is a tome, a very big book. It is exactly, to be completely correct, it is exactly 353 pages thick, and then there are some commercial pages to sell you other stuff. One of my many Kobold Press products. I'm a big fan of Kobold Press. I got this, I started reading this, and I just think it's amazing. If you play a spellcaster in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition and you just find yourself, you know, there's this big spell list in the player's handbook, and there's this big spell list in Xenetra's guide, and there's more spell lists in the official books, but after all, Dungeons & Dragons has been out, like 5th edition has been out for quite a while, and if you're like me and you play a lot of Dungeons & Dragons, you have seen a lot of spells a lot of the time. Like, I see fireballs every week, I see Ray of Frost every week. You know, there's these kinds of spells you just see tossed around every time, and that's why Kobold Press came around with this Deep Magic book. I've done a video on the Kickstarter that actually tried backing this thing. They succeeded, of course, and now it's in my hands. So I'm very proud of it, and I just want to flip through it, tell you what it's all about, because if you are a spellcaster, if you play a spellcaster, or if you are running a very magic, high magic campaign setting, or like Midgard for example, for your players, then this thing should really be in your collection. Before we do this, I just want to drop in real quick and tell you guys that I'm really happy with how things are going with my channel right now. I see new faces every day. I'm getting more views, everything. I'm creating way more videos for you guys. So if you're looking for a channel that is doing 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons third-party reviews of third-party modules for 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons, you came to the absolute right place. Also, click that subscribe button, and if you haven't, make sure to check out my giveaway video of Remarkable Shops and Remarkable Inns by Loresmith. I got a bunch of these laying around, I think like 8 or 9 of these laying around, and at a certain point when I reach 4,700 subscribers, I will give away all of these to you guys. I will just select a few people that win these. These are amazing modules. I got reviews of them on my channel, but right now, let's get to it. Now, what is Deep Magic exactly? Deep Magic is 700 new spells. More than 700 new spells. And to be perfectly fair, that's a lot of spells. And if it was just that, it would have already been an amazing book. But it is a tome, and they didn't just put new spells inside a book and call it a day. No, Kobold Press really works on their Midgard campaign setting. The campaign setting by Kobold Press is called Midgard. And they have all kinds of weird magic types that you don't have in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. Like Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition has diviner magic and all that stuff, you know, necromancy and illusion and everything. And Kobold Press just came up with new ones. They came up with things like angelic magic, there's chaos magic, dragon magic, elven ritual magic, hieroglyph magic, rune magic, ring magic, shadow magic, temporal magic, winter magic, sounds really dope, illumination magic, clockwork magic, labyrinth magic, dark magic, have I already said chaos magic? I don't know, there's a bunch of new magics out there, and they actually classified them in certain sections together with, again, Kobold Press's artwork. Do I have to say anything more than just say that the artwork by Kobold Press yet again is it's just, I don't have to say this. This is just too good. Artwork is just amazing. Anyway, so they put it in these sections and it really tells the story of Midgard, and that is not it. That is not all. There's more. Yes, there's more. Because they have class options. Yes, they do. They have class options. They have a bunch of, no, they have 2 bardic, bard colleges. College of Greenleaf College, for example. Then there is divine domains. And there is like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 divine domains. New, I will get back to the new part. 16 new for most people divine domains. Druid circles a bunch, like 5, 6 of them. Martial archetypes. Some sort of knight in here. There's a sacred oath. There's ranger archetypes. Yes, they didn't forget about the ranger, which I really like because the ranger does not get enough love in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. It is an awesome class. Even the vanilla Beastmaster. Yes, I said it. Even the vanilla Beastmaster is an awesome class to play if you play it right. There's Sorcerer's Origins, there's Otherworldly Patrons, there's Arcane Traditions, and there is Arcane Backgrounds. All in here. All in one tome full of new stuff. Now, I have to do a little side note, a little disclaimer. This is not exactly new stuff. Like, a bunch of this in here is new. It's completely new. Never been released ever in anything. But if you have been a Kobold Press fan, like me, and a Kobold Press collector, like me, you've seen a lot of stuff that's in here already. Just to give you one example, there's the Warlock Grimoire by Kobold Press, and it has a few spells. Not a lot, but just a few spells that it talks about. And there's one spell in here that I read, and it became my favorite spell of all time immediately. And I said that in my review of this book. If you're interested in this thing, it's a funny little book with all kinds of new ideas for your campaign. Completely random stuff. It doesn't have a theme, it's just completely random stuff. Check my review out. But there's one spell in here that I like very much. So when I opened the tome, when I opened the Deep Magic book, I immediately searched for that spell, and that spell is also in the Deep Magic book. It is the Candles Inside spell. If you don't know what it is, basically you can sit in a room with somebody at a table with two chairs. You can light a candle, and then you can ask that person questions, and when the candle just keeps burning like normal, the person is telling the truth. If the candle starts flickering around, you know that people are telling the truth, but they're trying to bend the truth. And then if the candle goes out, the spell ends, but you also know the person told a straight up lie. So if the questionee tells a complete outright lie, then the candle goes out, but the spell also ends. I think it's not a powerful spell. It's not like it does a gazillion D100s type of damage. I don't know. It's not a powerful spell, but it's one of those role-playing spells that every now and then you can use. And those, I personally really love those spells. I have them on my spell list for my wizard, my 84-year-old wizard that I'm playing. And it is on his spell list, but it's not prepared. So if he needs to go question somebody, he needs to like wait a day and research the spell, and you know, and needs to do his thing like wizards do, in order to for the next day to question that person. And I really like that kind of stuff, and that kind of stuff is what Kobold Press does very good with their Midgard campaign setting. One domain I've always liked is the beer domain Cleric. Yes, there's actually a Cleric domain called Beer Domain, where you can create simple brews, simple alcoholic infused brews that can give you a plus on armor class or give you other buffs. For example, one buff that it gives advantage on all charisma based checks, increase the DC of saving throws against their castings of enchantment spells. So it does a lot of boons. You can give like one brew to a player, and you can give him +1 armor class or whatever. Also, the reason that I say that I already love this one is because it is in the Midgard Heroes Handbook by Kobold Press. It is already in there. They just took it out and put it in here. So consider the Deep Magic book. Don't consider this a entirely new thing. But if you are into Kobold Press and you don't have everything from Kobold Press already, consider this a best of thing. Also, a lot of these things are copied from one thing, completely copied into this, but also other ones are they have been revisited, they have been slightly rewritten. Of course, every time they do something like this, they have to just check it out and see if it's still balanced or whatever. So it is very well worth your money, especially if you do not yet have everything from Kobold Press like I do. One thing I think is really different in how they set up this book is they take an entirely different direction in how they set up this book. Well, for example, there's the spell description, entirely like you would find it in the 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons Player's Handbook, where you just have a list of all the spells and then you get a description of all the spells, just all in order, from the alphabetical order. All the spells will be in order, description will be there, but then every spell has a word between brackets. Behind the title there is a word between brackets. There could be like dragon or void or dark or whatever kind of magic that spell actually is. And then a few sections later, in the back of the book, more to the middle of the book, they have a section dedicated to each type of magic, and there they have these spell descriptions and some of these spells again, but now together. So if you want to play a wizard that has a bunch of different kinds of magic, you can just use the spell description thing in the front. But if you want to play like a void mage, then you can really go to that section and really pick out those spells, which comes in very easy. I generally, when I play a diviner mage, I generally have to use an app or something or Google to like search those types of spells from different kinds of books. They do that in this book already, which is really handy. Also, they write up a lot of lore and a lot of like the certain quirks these type of magics have. So if you go to the section for that kind of magic, you can also read about why that magic exists, what its place is in the world, how people use it, which kind of people use it, all that stuff, all that lore, all that jazz around that spell type is in here also. Now I will just flip through this book and just give you a few spells. I will start with these spells. Just give you a few spells that I really like. First of all, there's the Candle Insight that I already talked about. One of my favorite spells, purely for the flavor of it. The flavor is just good. It's not really a spell you'll use every session or every combat encounter. It's just a flavorful spell, which I really like. But then there is a bunch of spell called Aspect of the. And for example, there's the Aspect of the Ape, Aspect of the Firebird, Aspect of the Ram, Aspect of the Serpent, and then, oh, that's it. Serpent, yeah, that's it. So, for example, Aspect of the Ape, you can touch a willing creature and then that creature gains a lot of stuff an ape would be able to do. For example, it gains a climbing speed, it gains advantage to athletics checks made while jumping and climbing. And then also, I really like this one, again for its flavor. When up in a tree's branches, the target can move up to its climbing speed as a bonus action. So that's really cool. You get a climbing speed and you can swing around and you can jump very far. But when you are in a tree's branches, you can be even better at it because you now have powers of a ape, which is really cool. And they do the same for the Firebird, for the Ram, stuff like that. For the Ram, for example, you get like horns, which deal 1d6 bludgeoning damage, and it does some other stuff. So I really think these spells really belong together. So for example, if you can be like a wizard that has these 4 spells, because they're all there's a second level, 6th level, second level spell. You can have a bunch of these spells because you can really build a wizard that has a certain theme around it. Here is a first level necromancy spell that I really like and is really evil. It's a first level spell and it's called Bleat. And what it basically does is you can cast it on your sword, for example, and every time you hit a creature with that particular sword, that creature gains a cut in their chest or in their arm or whatever, and they start bleeding out of it. Every time you hit that same creature with that same sword, after that you deal 1 more point of damage every time you hit it, for each time you already hit it. So you can really start scarring somebody with that sword and they start bleeding. And for example, you've hit 5 times already with that bleeding sword. You hit it again. Your attack then does 5 points more damage because you're cutting into these scars of this creature. Then, after that, if you hit it again, it does 6 points more damage. It can really rank up, and I really like it. It's only a first level necromancy spell, but if you use it correctly, it can become a really strong and really cool and really flavorful spell. Or how about Breeze Compass? Literally a slight breeze that will point you towards the direction you want to go. This one is also very interesting, Thorn Gauge. And I know there's already a bunch of spells in every role-playing game out there ever where thorns come out of the ground and they grab your body and you are restrained. I know, but it is the mechanical part of this one that I really like. When you are in the Thorn Gauge, you are restrained. Right? You don't take any damage, which is already a lot different than a lot of the spells. A lot of spells do like damage every time, every turn you're in this, you take some damage from divines or whatever, or another effect on you. But for this one, you're only just restrained. The thing is, you cannot escape. If you try to escape, you can escape with a difficulty class against your spell save DC strength check. You can escape from the Thorn Gauge. But if you fail to escape, then you take damage. So it's one of those thorn cages where you're inside the thorns and you're like, I can't move. If I move, it will hurt. I'm not gonna try to move because it will hurt. And every time you try to move and you don't succeed in breaking it, you just take more damage, which I really like as a mechanic itself. And then there are the class options, and I already talked about one class option, the Beer Domain Cleric, which is a really funny and really cool domain for a cleric. And there is a bunch of like 16 or something like that domains for the cleric in this book. For example, one of them is the Mountain Domain, there is the Moon Domain, there is the Winter Domain where you can cast a bunch of cold damage, and at a certain point you can even do like an avalanche that buries everybody, and you can cast just an avalanche. When you're in the mountains, you can cast an avalanche. There's the Mountain Domain where you can have people gaining climbing speed, or have them have advantage on climbing checks and stuff like that. So there's a bunch of cleric domains in here, and they really did that. I don't know why they did that, I don't know where they got all that, but I really like to play clerics, and I really like clerics in my party, so giving more options to clerics is always a good idea. Then there is the Druid Circle of the Owl. Yes, the creature, the owl, the flying bird, the owl that flies at night. There's a Druid Circle of it, and I really like it because of one simple mechanic. Well, basically it's an entirely cool class. It's the Circle of the Owl, and one thing you can do is you can hide in plain sight. Even when people see you, you can suddenly just hide away. Like owls, they can fly and they can really disappear into the darkness. But the coolest thing is you can cast Clairvoyance spell, which is just a spell, which is cool. You can cast a Clairvoyance spell, costing you no components, cost you only 1 action. But if you know the Clairvoyance spell, it normally has a invisible sensor. You can put a sensor somewhere in the room, and then you can have you can either hear people talk or see what is happening. But instead of the invisible sensor, you can have an image of an owl be visible, like a real life magical owl. People will just see an owl. I don't know where that would be useful, to have an owl instead of an invisible sensor, but I think it's a really cool option to just have an owl. Suddenly there's an owl on your arm and it flies off and it goes inside like a church or something, and it just sits there, ooh, 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 something like that, I don't know, and then it just, you can see people talk, or you can hear people talk with the Clairvoyance spell. I think that kind of flavor stuff is really what makes Kobold Press Kobold Press. There's also a bunch of new options for warlocks, otherworldly patterns, and one of them is the Genie Lord. And you literally made a pact with a genie, and one of the mechanics is that you can get a minor wish. It's called minor wish, but actually when you do an attack roll, a saving throw, an ability check, or a damage roll, you can choose to re-roll it and take the higher result. So basically you get advantage on any roll you want from a genie. Outside of just player options like new archetypes and new subclasses, there's also a few backgrounds, and one of them is called the archivists, like a person who holds an archive. And one of the mechanics is really cool. When you study books in a library for at least 1 hour, then after that, if you do an intelligence check involving that subject that you researched, you can have any die roll on a d20 intelligence check considered at least a 10. So if you roll 9 or 8 or 7 or whatever lower, you can take 10 on your die roll, which is really cool. It's like a simple mechanic, but if you are playing a lore heavy campaign and you are researching stuff, like let's say you have to go defeat a green dragon and you want to research green dragon stuff and you want to really get to know what a green dragon basically is, then you go into the library, study it, and then after a while you can do intelligence checks on that, and you can roll at least a 10, which is a really cool mechanic for role-playing purposes. Then, like I said in the beginning of this video, they go deeper into the kinds of magic. For example, there's the alchemancy magic, and here they spend an entire section talking about how it happened, where it comes from, which people use it, which people don't use it, how people see it, how people look upon it, what people's opinions are about it. Just an entire section of how it all works. And then something they do really good, and they make sure you only need this book and you don't need an app to really research stuff. You see all the spells that are in the front of the book, but now per class. You can see which alchemancy magic spells a sorcerer can cast, which alchemancy spells a wizard can cast, and there's also the warlock, which ones they can cast. So they split that up, and then they come back with the spell descriptions the same way as they did in the beginning of the book, which is a really cool thing they did, because now you have two ways to research and to look up your spells, two different ways. Like if you're playing a spellcaster that really digs into one kind of magic, this way of building the book really can come in handy. Check out this awesome art piece of rune magic. And that was it, my first video, my first review, flip through of a Kobold Press book in my brand spanking new studio. Deep magic is just magic, magic, and magic. There's a bunch of new magic types like dragon magic, like rune magic, like fiendish magic. There's a bunch of new class options for all the magic casting classes out there in the player's handbook. There's even more stuff I didn't talk about on purpose because I want you to discover it yourself. There is over 700 new spells, all very original and all written with a lot of flavor. And me, for example, I always feel that the 5th edition player's handbook, some of the spells are written, they're created maybe a bit rushed, and now that we're a bit further in the game, Kobold Press took their time to like really create flavorful stuff. They can really build your campaign as a player, build your character. I think this is a really cool tome to have, and if you are of the spellcaster type, just pick it up. If you want to, if you're still on the fence and you're really like, I don't really know if my kind of magic is in there, click the link in the description below. It will tell you what's all in there. Very detailed, because the pages are very detailed. You can pick it up either as a PDF or as a hard cover, or maybe as a soft cover. I'm not entirely sure, but it is really worth your money. And if you're a dungeon master and you want to surprise one or more of your players, one of those players that's really into magic, and you're like, hey, I got just a few extra options for you, just throw this badass on the table. Just throw it on the table, and everyone will be like, that's a lot of stuff. I need to go home and research this stuff before we play Dungeons and Dragons. So do this at session 0, maybe that's the best time to do this. Anyway, until next time, I hope your inspiration may guide you.